There was an old man named Joe who lived way out in the countryside, and he had one neighbor, and this neighbor was a good neighbor. And they had been friends their whole lives. And now that their spouses were buried and their children were raised, all these two neighbors had left were their farms and each other. But for the first time ever, they had a big argument, and it was over this stray calf that neither one really needed. It seemed as though the calf was found over on Joe's neighbor's land, and so his neighbor claimed it as his own. But then Joe said, no, that calf is really mine because it has the same markings as my favorite cow, and I'm pretty sure that's not yours. And they were both a bit stubborn, so they just stopped talking to each other. It seemed like a dark cloud had settled over Joe. And then one day, a knock came at his door. Joe had not been expecting anyone that morning, and as he opened the door, he was surprised to see a young woman there holding a box of tools over her shoulder. And she said, "Hello, I'm a carpenter and I'm looking for a bit of work. I wonder, do you have any small jobs perhaps I could help you with?" And so Joe, he took a moment and he thought about it. And he decided he liked this carpenter. And he said, I do have a job for you. Do you see that farm right over there? That's my neighbor's farm. And do you see that creek running right down there between our property lines? Well, that creek was not there last week. My neighbor made that creek just to spite me. He took his plow up there and he dug a big old furrow from the upper pond and he flooded it. And so I'd like to ask you to do one better. And since he apparently wants us divided in that way, I want to ask you to go out there and build me a fence, a big, tall fence, so I won't have to even see his place anymore when I look out my windows. And the carpenter said, well, sure. If you have the lumber and the nails, I've got my tools and I'd be able to build something that you'd like. So Joe had to go to town that day. So he showed the carpenter where all the materials were in his barn. Then he hitched up his wagon and he hit the road. The carpenter carried everything she needed down to the creek and she started her work. And the carpenter's work went smoothly. It went very quickly. She did her measuring and her sawing and her nailing. And it was about sunset when Joe returned. And the carpenter, she had finished all her work. And when Joe pulled up in his wagon, his eyes opened wide, his mouth fell open. There was not a fence there at all. It was a bridge going from one side of the creek to the other. It was a beautiful piece of work, and his neighbor was just starting to cross the bridge with his hand stuck out. And his neighbor was saying, Joe, you're quite a fellow to build this bridge. I'd never been able to do that. I'm so glad you're wanting to be friends again." And Joe, rather shocked, he didn't know what to do, so he put his arms around his neighbor and said, "Oh, yeah, that calf is yours. I'd known it the whole time. I just want to be your friend too." And about that time, the carpenter started putting her tools in the box and she hoisted it back on her shoulder and started to walk away. And Joe said, "Oh, no, wait, come back, carpenter. I want you to stay. I can find lots of other projects for you." But the carpenter just smiled and said, "I'd love to stay on, Joe, but you see, I can't. I've got more bridges to build." And so she walked on. We gather this morning to remember that we need each other, especially when we are stuck in conflict. We need each other to recognize those times when a bridge would serve us best, even when our hurt has convinced us to put all of our resources into building walls. We need each other to keep our hearts soft, to keep our minds curious, and to keep our spirits open to possibility, because life is too short and too precious to try to go it alone. Come, let us worship together. Will you join me in the words of our covenant that begin with the word love as I light our chalice? Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.